Hi, and welcome to a Leadership Moment with Pastor Gary. If you listened to the last video segment, I forgot to tell you where I was. You know me, I love the mountains and I love to get out into beautiful North Idaho. But I'm regulated to the office because it's getting a little cooler outside and plus it's raining. And in the wintertime, I guess you could say, is the rainy season in Idaho. So I'm at the office and I've got the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. I think that's Ronald Reagan's book on leadership. Yep, behind me. Of course, my Bible is always with me. But this is Reach America. This is our building. A year ago, well, not quite a year ago, in January actually of 2014, we merged with Highway Evangelism, which was a ministry that put Bible verses up on billboards in Idaho along freeways. We merged together with them. And as a result, we have the only Christian bookstore in North Idaho, the Sower. We have, we have about 5 acres here, and we're looking for the state to give us more along a right-of-way that they're not planning on using, so we're hoping that happens. But that gives you a little context of where I am. We're talking about the secret to saving America. And we're talking about the basic concept, the foundation of what I think God's going to use to bring America back is the C-4 community, a Christ-centered counterculture. Now, a Christ-centered counterculture, don't want to repeat everything we did in the last segment, but it is a group of vibrant Christians and their families who love Jesus and they love America, and their goal is to become everything that God's created them to be in the context of the C4 community, which is kind of like the Daniel principle. You build it up alongside of the current culture for the idea that we go into that culture. We don't become like them. They come into our counterculture and they become like us. So we're not withdrawing, but we are actually removing ourselves in order to prepare ourselves to better win the world. There are 3 target groups. I want to talk about target groups for a second in a C4 community. Target group number 1 are passionate Christians who have the goals of a C4 community in their heart and who are willing to become a part of a C4 community, be trained. Matter of fact, it probably would be a pretty good idea that if you're interested in building a C4 community where you live, that you begin to make a list of people who might help you. They can meet in your home. You can start off meeting at a church. It could be a church. If you're a pastor listening to this, you could get together some people in your church and you can make your church a C4 community. But it's got to be something that you don't need to do a lot of convincing. When we first started, I first started building this C4 community, and here we're building in Idaho. God told me very, very definitely, start to look for passionate people that you don't have to spend a lot of time convincing, that you have to spend a lot of time converting. Follow passion. So I would say your first target group are passionate Christians who have a heart for Jesus and have a heart for changing America, and they don't mind getting messed with. In other words, these are people that are pliable, that are willing to be used, that are willing to be trained. And they're very easily become a part of a group, if you know what I mean. Then the second target group that you have are reasonable Christians who are winnable and willing to listen. Once you establish your C4 community with people who get the message, who get it, if you will, then you can begin to reach out to reasonable Christians who might not necessarily understand what you're doing, but they're winnable. They're willing to listen. The third target group for a C4 community are those without Christ. That's the group that you eventually want to reach. You eventually want to take people from where they are and move them to where Christ is and what Christ is doing in the world. Years ago, let me illustrate this. Years ago when I was working with primarily youth, in 2006 I was blessed by the U.S. Congress. They asked me, several offices, several congressmen got together and asked me to do a national youth leadership training in Washington, D.C. We had youth from all over the country there, and they were excited about the leadership process. And during one of the breaks, I sat down with some adults and I said, guys, you're going to, I pulled the adults together during the break. I said, guys, you got to understand something. There's two things teenagers don't have. They don't have money and they don't have rides. That if what we're teaching them here is going to really go, you're going to have to fund it. You're going to have to be there for them. You're going to have to chaperone them. You're going to have to transport them around. And it just seemed like the training was great. Everybody left there excited, but just to be honest, when I was doing follow-up with some of the people there from different communities, there wasn't much going on. It's almost like we attend conferences and we hear what's in the conference, and then whatever notebook or whatever thing that we get, we have a tendency to put it on the shelf. You know what I'm talking about? And it goes up on the shelf, and then we go to the next conference and we learn another concept. We get all excited there. But there doesn't seem to be a lot of implementation going on. And so years ago when I was involved, I was thinking about this dilemma. How is it we just don't ever get it? How do we get it, God? How do we get it to where, we follow through and we do the work when we get home? Well, I was watching a TV commercial back in those days, and I can't remember exact year this was. Yeah, I'm that old, where I can't remember exact years. But I remember I was watching a Gatorade commercial. You remember those Gatorade commercials that were filmed in black and white, but the Gatorade that the athletes were drinking as they were working out and running, the Gatorade they were drinking, it was color. Like if it was a green or a red color, it was in color. And when they drank it, of course it showed them drinking it, consuming it. Then when they started working out, they started to sweat the Gatorade. In other words, the sweat came out the same color as the Gatorade. And then there was a caption at the end of the commercial that said, Gatorade, is it in you? And I sat there and I was watching that and I said, God, how in the world can I get teens and their parents and their leaders to sweat Jesus? How do we really get it? We're reaching out to people. We're doing our evangelism events. But as I was sharing with a group of men the other night, it's great that we're teaching our children, but how does our country get to the shape it's in when there's so many Christians in worship on Sunday morning? How come there's many divorced people in the church as there is outside the church? How is it that children are still struggling in education at the same rate that children inside the church, that children outside the church are? Oh, I've got tons of questions. Why do we reflect the world more than the world reflects Christ? I think it's time that we change. Well, how do we get it? That's going to be the topic of the next conversation as we look at the two scriptures that are fundamentally important for the development of a C-4 community. We're talking about the secret to saving America, and this is a leadership moment with Pastor Gary. We believe that God can bring America back through us. Do you believe? See you next time. God bless.